Welcome back. So now we are going to talk about possibly one of the most important factors when it comes to email marketing. That is going to be email deliverability. Okay. Now, a lot of people try and overcomplicate this and make this seem like this really pie in the sky, complex topic. And it is easy to get lost in the weeds. So I am going to try and make this as simple as humanly possible for you to understand. So at its core, when people talk about email deliverability, this simply means where do emails go after they're sent, okay? So remember before in the live walkthrough, we made a campaign. When I hit the send now button of the email that I just wrote up, where does that email go? Where does it go to promotion, spam, primary? Does it get lost in the abyss? What happens to it, all right? That is your email deliverability. It just simply means, does the email get delivered or not? And where does it get delivered? So you can think of this as like the algorithm of email. Right, so social media, Facebook, Instagram, they all have the algorithms. This is like Gmail's algorithm. It kind of determines where your email goes. I like to think of this as the Harry Potter sorting hat of email, right? Are you a good guy? You go to Gryffindor, you go to the primary tab, congratulations. Maybe you're a bad egg and you get put in Slytherin, aka the spam folder, right? Maybe you're a bad motherfucker and Slytherin's your jam. Good for you, all right? Just as an example, it's the Harry Potter sorting hat, okay, of email. So your deliverability really can make or break your results with email. It is to be both feared and equally respected. So the best case here with deliverability and what we want and what we're shooting for and what we're trying to aspire to for all of your clients' emails is that your emails are hand delivered nicely into the primary inbox on a silver platter. They're put right in front of everyone's eyes to enjoy. Okay. This just means you open Gmail and they're right there in the primary tab. Right at the top, boom, Sean Ferris lost my grandfather. What's that about? Let me go check. Let me read the email, okay? This is a really quite inspiring email. I'm really proud of that one. Second place it could go is right here in promotions. See what I mean? See how all these emails, they kind of look the same. We were talking about the promotional like flyer style email. These all look like junk email. They're all a fancy designed, pleasing graphics, like logos, pictures, images, embedded links, non-stop links and images and videos and that sort of stuff. They all look like promotional flyers. That's why they all go to promotions. And if you look at all the emails in primary, what do they all have in common? Well, for the most part, all of these are going to be text-based emails. See, text, that's from Upwork. That one snuck in, but this is most of them. If you go through them, they're going to be generally more personal looking text style emails and less of this. Spotify, obviously, I've whitelisted them. But for the most part, less of these flyer graphics style. And then God forbid, if we go to the wasteland, the junkyard of email known as spam, then you'll see pretty much all of these are just spams, scam, crypto nonsense, bullshit. You just want to, yeah, there you go. You just want $8 million. Yeah, just reply to me and I'll send you $8 million. Fucking Miss Russia wants to fuck you tonight. All that kind of shit, right? That's what's in spam. We don't need to explain that one. So the best case is your emails are hand delivered into primary. That's what we want. We want primary inbox. And you should be getting at least a 20% open rate if your emails are landing in primary. My email open rates are closer to 30 to 40%, sometimes even over 40%. And the reason for that is because I continuously remove my inactive subscribers, like I mentioned in the last video. Now, a typical case is that your emails will wind up in the promotions tab, which is the one I just showed you, which only about half of subscribers check, right? Be honest, if you use Gmail, you probably only hang out in this primary tab here. You probably don't really check the promotions tab very often. About half of people do, about half of the time. So that means that your open rates, if your emails are landing in promotions, will be typically about 10 to 12, maybe 15%. Okay? And absolute worst case, of course, is that your emails go to the spam folder, which obviously no one checks ever. Very rare. So your open rates will be less than 5%. Okay? So that's the three places really where your email could land. It also could just disappear entirely into thin air and bounce, which is, rare. That means some of your records are off, which we'll talk about in a second. So depending where your client's emails are currently landing, you can see how you could potentially double, triple, or even quadruple opens, clicks, and sales simply by improving deliverability. So imagine if you work with a client and their emails are currently going to the spam folder, without any changes at all to your copy, to your marketing strategy, to the thing you're selling. If you simply fix their deliverability and you're able to get their emails from spam or promotions to the primary inbox instead, without doing any other changes at all, you have either 4, 5, 10x in the case of spam, or you've pretty much nearly doubled it in the case of going from promotions to primary. And of course, if you double the amount of people who open, you double the amount of people who click and reply, you double the amount of sales you make. Everything is linear. So that's a huge needle mover, and that's why it's so important. Now, this became especially relevant in 2013 when Gmail introduced the infamous promotions tab, okay? Because this hasn't been around forever. This only came out 10 years ago, right? That makes me feel old. But basically designed for marketing and sales emails, and many other email clients, Yahoo, Hotmail, they all introduced their own versions of this as well, the promotions tab, okay? So Gmail led the industry there. Now, this is extra important because nearly half of all email users use Gmail, right? About 44% of email users actually use Gmail. So that's why I talk about Gmail the most, and I perceive Gmail to be the most important. And generally, if you can get it to go to the primary tab in Gmail, then you'll be sweet for all the rest of the email clients like Outlook and Hotmail and Yahoo, etc. If you can get it in the primary tab in Gmail, then pretty much all the ESPs should be fine. And most people use Gmail, so that's really the biggest one to worry about. So, prime example, just to be really explicitly clear, we want to land in primary, not in promotions, okay? Now, here's what's funny. So when Gmail introduced the promo tab in 2013, a lot of marketing gurus and influencers and whatnot started declaring email is dead, email is dying. You might have been hearing this for the last 10 years, like a broken record. Fun fact, it actually still hasn't died, and they've been saying it for 10 years straight, right? Because Gmail, the promo tab came along and fucking wrecked them, right? And cut their open rates and sales in half. So previously, prior to 2013, it was like the Wild West. You could say whatever the hell you wanted, obviously within reason. Otherwise, you would still go to spam. Okay, you can't just say whatever, but you could be really salesy and aggressive with your marketing and emails. And all the emails were landing like clockwork in the person's primary because there was only one tab before. These tabs didn't exist. And so they were just making cash hand over fist. And then all of a sudden Gmail comes along, introduces this promo tab and just fucks their shit up, right? So this is why they started seeing emails dying, etc. Maybe for them, not for us, not for you and me, okay? Because we are smart marketers and we know what we're doing. At least you're about to if you don't. So let's talk about what makes up deliverability. How is this determined? What actually determines if your email goes to primary or promotions? What's important? What's not? What matters? What doesn't matter? That's what we're going to talk about and demystify for you right now. All right. So email deliverability is comprised of 4 main components. I'm going to try and keep this as simple as I can. So the first main component, and really the only one that people seem to understand or talk about, the surface level one, is the content of the email itself. Okay. So if you're using super salesy language and all your emails are like, click here, buy now, 50% off, sales, discount, right? Then that kind of very promotional language, Gmail's screening for that, and it's probably going to put you in the promotions tab. Makes sense because it's a promotional email. Okay. Remember, Gmail's trying to provide people the best user experience, and it's trying to get people to use email how email is designed to be used. You have to remember, email wasn't designed to be used to send tens of thousands of promotional emails at a time. Email was supposed to just replace direct mail, right? And so it was supposed to be a faster way of me mailing you without having to wait for the mailman 5 days to travel across the Pacific Ocean and put it in your mailbox, right? So that's how it was designed to be used. It wasn't supposed to be the sales channel. So the content of the email itself is going to be important. So this is pretty much in order of importance. It goes the from name, aka here, how it says Sean Ferris. This guy says Alpha Bro Muscle. You can actually change the from name to be whatever you want. I could change this to be your wallet, right? I could write a funny email from your wallet and it's like screaming and it's crying because it's empty because you're broke, right? Or a lot of people in the supplement space, they write emails from your liver or from your kidney or from whatever, your stomach, right? That sort of thing. And it's like, feed me, I'm hungry. The next one is the subject line, okay? Very important in determining your deliverability. Particularly if it's like a more salesy 50% off today only, that kind of subject line, more likely to go to promo. Images, especially if you have images that are over 600 pixels wide, that is like the determining factor. So if you have big images, like you look at all these ones in promotions, remember how we mentioned before, all these emails are full of images. That's probably the biggest reason they're all going to promotions. So the more images, links, videos, and fancy canvassy stuff that you have like this, the more likely you are to go to promo. Okay, so we want to generally avoid images if we don't need them. In some instances, a picture speaks 1,000 words. I get that. And in some cases, no matter what you say, it's never going to replace simply just showing them with a picture what you're trying to talk about. So there's definitely a time and place for images, and they can definitely be a great asset and a great strategy in your emails. However, don't just go throwing images in there willy-nilly. Like, people have all sorts of logos and banners and huge unnecessary images. That's just providing no value to the email and simply destroying their deliverability. So be careful, just be a bit wary of using images, and always make sure they're less than 600 pixels, okay? So just to be crystal clear, want to keep them less than 600 pixels. Links obviously are important as well, especially if you have a lot of links and a lot of different links to different things, then that's more likely to get you in promo. The link copy is also important as well. So if I look at, try and find an email with some link copy in it. There we go. Craig Ballantyne. So the link copy, meaning the actual text that's hyperlinked, the actual words that have the hyperlink on it. So the link would be when I click it, where does it take me? That's the link. The link copy is these words here that say how I made my first 7 figures step-by-step blueprint. Okay. So that's pretty fine. That's great. If the link copy itself was like, click here to save 50% off now, expires Friday, something like that, that's more salesy promotional language. And that's, again, more likely to get you to go to promo. And then last but not least is, of course, the body copy. What's the actual content of your emails? Does it sound like a salesy email, or does it sound like a personal email from a friend? Okay, so the body copy is also important. So that's the first thing that affects deliverability. And really, that's all most people focus on and think about and even know about. Most people, most of the clients you guys are working with don't even realize or understand that there are actually 3 other components that can completely make or break your emails. What if I told you I could actually break all of these rules? Nearly, for the most part. Okay, I wouldn't be too aggressive. But technically, if I had the rest of these correct and down pat, if my domain reputation, my IP reputation, and my records were all in check and correct and as they should be, I could technically send an email to my list that's like, Bitcoin, Schmidtcoin, 50% off. Miss Brazil wants to fucking jump in your pants and eat your big cock up tonight and buy this dick pill, and fucking this crypto is about a 10x. Make sure you get in, buy now, 99% off, super sale. All the worst things possible. Like, I could say the most salesy, scammy, spamming sounding language. And if the rest of this was in check, I could probably get away with it. And to be honest, it would probably still go to primary because it's me that's sending it and I have my records in check. So let me explain what I'm talking about. Okay, a lot of swearing going on in this recently, but I've got to make it interesting and fun somehow. So the second important thing, all right, these aren't in order, these are all just equally important. So the second factor that essentially makes up your email deliverability is going to be your domain reputation. So think about this as like your track record of sending emails. So because I've been sending emails for a long time, 5 years, and I've been a good boy, right? I've been just sending valuable emails with occasional call to actions, and I haven't been super salesy. I haven't got a bunch of spam complaints. A lot of people open and read my emails. So I'm basically showing Gmail, I'm one of the good guys, right? And I have a long track record of doing that. And so Gmail rewards me by putting me in the primary tab, right? Now, the biggest thing email clients, Gmail, etc., look at are your past open rates. That's the most important thing that it looks for. Any positive engagement that anyone does with your emails will help increase and improve your domain reputation. You can think of domain reputation as like your sender reputation. It's the same thing, okay? Just to be clear, you might hear people say both. They pretty much mean the same. So if anyone opens or clicks a link in my email or replies to any email or forwards it, they send it to a friend, they whitelist it, they save my email, they add me as a contact, anything like that, that's a positive signal to the algorithm of Gmail that people want to hear from me. They find my emails valuable. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing that stuff, okay? And likewise, any negative interactions with my emails will hurt my domain reputation, drag it down, and if enough people do that stuff, then I may well start going to promo. So some examples, if people are on my list but they're not opening my emails, or they're deleting my emails before they're even reading them, they're unsubscribing, or they're marking me as spam, that's by far the worst one. Maybe they're even blocking me, or they're dragging my email into the promo tab, right? So I could go in here and Hubstaff, which I don't really care about, I'll drag them into promo because I don't really want to see their stuff. And then it even says, do this for future messages. Yes. So I've wrecked Hubstaff single-handedly, brought down $1 billion company. Not really. It's not going to affect it for everyone. It'll cause future emails from them to go to my promotions. But again, It's about volume. So if enough people do that, then it may well just start going to promotions for everyone. Even if historically, maybe they all went to primary for you. Let's say 90% of the rest of their email list drags into promotions, which, it's unlikely, but then it would probably stop going to primary for you as well. So it is a dependent thing. So I could send 300 people an email. It's not guaranteed to go to everyone's primary. For some people, it will go to their primary, and for some people, it will go to their promotions. For some people, maybe one person, it will wind up in their spam somehow, okay? So it's not like one email goes to the same place for everyone. It can often go to different places for different people. But it's where the bulk of your emails will end up. If you're doing all this stuff right, the bulk of your emails to the most of your list should end up in primary, with only a few in promotions, and the other way around as well. Now, be aware, this is domain wide. So if I send from anything at seanferris.com, this affects my domain and sender reputation. So it doesn't matter if I send from help at seanferris.com, support at seanferris.com, sean at seanferris.com. It doesn't matter because it's anything at seanferris.com. This is a domain-wide situation. So they'll all be treated the same in terms of your sender reputation. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Third piece of the puzzle. We're getting more complicated here, but I'm going to try and keep it simple. So the third piece here that affects deliverability is going to be your IP reputation. So really, this is the reputation of your entire ESP. So think about this as everyone who uses ActiveCampaign, okay? Because I send from ActiveCampaign, I send from a shared IP. There are also hundreds and thousands, tens of thousands of other people who are sending from the same IP address as I am, because we all use ActiveCampaign, right? And it has its own IP address that it sends from. So think about this as like your emails are bundled in with anyone else's on a shared IP. Now, depending on the other people's behavior, as you can imagine, this can actually drag everyone up or down, depending on other people's sending practices. So imagine if there were a bunch of scammers who are using ActiveCampaign. Probably not, they'd probably get kicked off pretty quick. But let's say I was doing everything right. I was following all this stuff to a T, all the best practices, best list hygiene. I'm one of the good guys. And I'm, let's say, 1 out of 100 people who are on ActiveCampaign. Okay, keep it simple. Imagine if all other 99 of them didn't give a shit. They were just scamming people left and right, sending the most atrocious, horrible, spammy emails. Well, because they are all dragging the overall reputation of ActiveCampaign's IP down in Gmail's eyes. Gmail just sees me as another ActiveCampaign sender, and it goes, fuck this guy, he's just like the rest of them. And their bad practices actually drag me down as well. So I may start going to spam or promotions due to no fault of my own because of the other people who are bad actors, okay? In actual practice, this won't actually really make a huge difference, especially if you choose a reputable, well-known ESP like ActiveCampaign, right? It has great deliverability, so you won't really have to worry about this. Maybe if you're using MailChimp, it might be a problem. That's why another reason I don't like it. But if you're using like some unheard of Chinese ESP, which is like sketchy and just invented yesterday, maybe not the best for the IP reputation for the whole ESP. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Think of this as kind of like if you ever were in high school, some of these asshole teachers, man, they were like, everyone has to do their homework. If one person doesn't do their homework, the whole class gets detention. That's how it is. Fuck that one person who didn't do the homework, seriously. So you can understand, it's like the overarching IP that affects everyone. Now, if you have a massive list, like you're sending over 100,000 emails a day, probably about 200, 250,000 a day, then you can actually reach out to your ESP and you can ask them for a private IP. So I could go to ActiveCampaign, talk to the support, and I could say, hey, can you put me on my own private IP server? So it's only me sending from this IP and I'm not affected by these scrubs who don't do their homework, okay? So I'm not lumped in with anyone else. That's only if you have a huge list. Do not worry about this if you have, if you're sending like less than 100,000 emails a day, as a minimum, don't worry. Otherwise it will actually hurt you big time because you're not sending enough volume to actually train the IP. It's a whole different subject. All you need to know, shared IP is fine unless you have a huge list, in which case, then maybe a private IP is what you want to go for. Make sense? Wonderful. All right, let's talk about the last piece of this puzzle. This is authentication records. This is possibly the most complicated, mind-numbingly boring subject of all time. I have found not a single human being on the planet who can explain this in a way that is easy to understand. I searched for hours and hours and hours when I was first looking into this, did not understand any of this, no matter how many definitions I read, I didn't get it. No one's been able to explain this in a way that I can understand. So I spent probably 2 hours coming up with this analogy to get you to understand this, okay? So I've taken something that is really technical and complicated and boiled it down, numbed it down in a way that is like super easy for anyone to understand, okay? So hopefully you appreciate my analogy. You'll see in a second. So the final piece that goes into deliverability is your authentication records. So you might have heard of these acronyms before: SPF, DKIM, and DMARC records. So these are authentication methods that essentially help prevent spammers and scammers from sending emails under someone else's name. Right? Think about this as like a fake impersonator account on Instagram. Okay. These stop me being able to go along and let's say I'm pretending to be Alex Hormozy and I'm selling my course and my product and I'm like, yeah, this is definitely Alex and I endorse this and this is great. And then, I'm sending like malicious links to people and it's like stealing their passwords and hacking their computers and stuff. Email would be a horrible Wild West. It would be a terrible user experience if these records didn't exist. So these are really there to safeguard and protect the users from spammers and scammers, okay? And to stop anyone being able to send an email pretending to be anyone else. You can see why obviously that would cause a shitload of problems, right? You'd be getting all sorts of fake emails from like Amazon, from Stripe, from your mobile provider, from whatever, from Meta, pretending to be this real insurance company or something, and then they're just sending malicious links and hacking you, okay? So you can think of these records as bouncers at a club, right? Or an Instagram blue check that just confirms that you are who you say you are. So if one or more of these records fail, then your emails may well go to spam or even completely disappear. It would also mean that scammers would also be able to impersonate you and scam people under your name, right? People could pretend to be Sean Ferris and email people bogus products and services and whatever and potentially scam them, which one, it's hurting thousands of people, which is terrible. And two, it's doing it under my name, so that drags my name through the mud. It really hurts my brand and my reputation. Because then people think I scammed them, right? But it was like, I didn't even know this guy exists and he scammed you, right? And it wasn't even me at all. So that's why these exist. So the best way I possibly have to explain what these records, each of these are, what they do, bear with me for a second. I'm going to use a fun analogy that I came up with last night. So I want you to imagine for a second that you are no longer you. You are now internationally famous DJ, producer, and artist Marshmello. If you haven't heard of him, welcome to planet Earth. This is Marshmello, one of the biggest DJs in the world, okay? You have a big headliner show at a major club and you walk up to the door girl. The door girl is going to be the SPF record. Don't worry, I'll explain these later on. I just want to get through this first to give you a high level understanding, okay? So you walk up to the door girl, she's the SPF. You have your helmet on, you're dressed up, you're ready for your show. She's not easily fooled. She's not just going to let anyone in the club who wears a bucket helmet, right? She's like, okay, yeah, if you're really Marshmello, what's your real name? And you go, Chris Comstock. And she's like, okay. Checks her guest list, her VIP guest list for all the approved list of names who are on the list. Artist, staff, VIP, guest list, that sort of stuff. The name itself, Chris Comstock, is indeed on the list. So in you go. She smiles. She lets you in. You have passed the SPF record check. Now, this is a very basic screen, but it's still not very secure because anyone who knows Marshmello's real name could drop it at the door to get in. So anyone could still wear a fake bucket helmet, pretend to be Marshmello, and all they would have to do is Google Marshmello real name to know that it's that, and then they could drop that name at the door and they would get in. So it's better than nothing. It's a basic screen, but it's still not very secure. So Marshmello walks in. On to the next check, okay? Now, we get to the big meaty boy, the bouncer. The bouncer is going to be DKIM. He puts his arm out, stops you and says, hey, buddy, not so fast, dickhead. You're the fourth person to walk in here wearing a bucket helmet like that. I need you to take off the helmet and I need you to show me some ID, okay? I don't know what the fuck that accent was. Don't worry about it. But basically he's like, dude, I can't just let anyone in the club who's wearing that. Like, I need to make sure that it's actually you. Show me some ID. So you show him, you take off the helmet. Big reveal. Okay, you show him your face and you show him your ID. And they match. Your face matches your ID. Cool. He scans it under the UV light and the hologram checks out. Okay, so he can see, he can validate that it is a real ID and not a fake ID. He then checks their public record and Chris Comstock really is Marshmello. So, okay, the name Chris Comstock matches the name Marshmello and your ID says that you really are Chris Comstock because your face matches the ID and it's a real ID. Therefore, if Chris Comstock really is Marshmello and your ID says you really are Chris Comstock, then therefore you really are Marshmallow. So the bouncer apologizes for calling you a dickhead and he lets you in. You have passed the DKIM test. Amazing. Congratulations. Those are the big two. Okay. Now, to explain these, you're about to go on stage. All right. You're getting ready for your show, pre-show ritual, getting fired up. You're about to step foot on stage to thousands of screaming fans and you get a tap on the shoulder. It's the club manager, aka Gmail. He says, hey man, there's a bloke outside who claims he's your friend. Do you know this guy? So you take a look and sure enough, you don't know the guy. It's just some random dude. He's pretending to know you so he can get in on your guest list, right? But it is your guest list, so you get to decide whether you let this random guy in or not. Now, of course, you don't know him, so you tell him politely to get stuffed, and then you go and play your show. That is an example of DMARC rejected. You smash your show, knock it out of the park, thousands of screaming fans, everyone had an amazing time. You then head to the VIP artist tables with the promoters for some post-show celebration drinks. You're high on adrenaline, bottles are flowing, you feel amazing, and then all of a sudden, you get another tap on the shoulder. It's the manager again, it's Gmail again. There's another person outside claiming to be friends with you. Like, here we go again. So you take a look, right? And once again, you have no idea who they are. They're just a random person, you don't know them. But hey, you're drunk and she's cute. So you tell the manager, let her in anyway. Even though I didn't know her, I'm still gonna let her in because I call the shots. I get to decide what happens. That is an example of DMARC set to none / set to accept, right? You accept everyone who just says that they know you, even if they don't know you, okay? So you're necking on with this bird, you're sipping a champagne, you're living your best life, all right? You're in the perfect little love bubble until once again, the manager taps you on the shoulder. There's yet another person outside claiming that they know you. And you're like, fuck, man. At this point, you're just sick of being pestered. You just want to enjoy your night and not have to play bouncer. So you just tell the club manager, hey, anyone who comes in, like, you just decide. I don't really care. I've got my woman here. I'm set with this bird, right? Anyone else who comes in, I don't really care. Just you decide. So the club manager says, all right, well, I'll let you in, but in case you're a psycho stalker, I don't want to let you anywhere near Marshmallow. So you are restricted to this dark, dingy, dirty corner of the club known as the spam folder. And that way they can't come and pester you and pester paying customers in case they turn out to be a weirdo or a creep. Okay? Now that is an example of DMARC quarantine. So to complete this story, you head home with the attractive stranger, but she turns out to be a Russian spy and she steals all your money and then slits your throat in your sleep. The end. Rest in peace, Marshmallow. Let me explain what the fuck I'm talking about. So, trust me, that is the easiest way I could explain this. You'll see. So what is SPF? Okay, stands for Sender Policy Framework. Doesn't matter. You don't need to know that. All you need to know is it is a list of all approved sending partners that you've given permission to send emails from your domain. For example, ActiveCampaign, Google Workspace, Stripe, and Zendesk. All are allowed to send emails from SeanFerris.com. So I have support at SeanFerris.com, right? When I send emails from my ESP, from ActiveCampaign to my whole list, they are sent from ActiveCampaign. So I need a way of telling my domain, right, which is hosted in GoDaddy, let's say. So I need to connect ActiveCampaign to GoDaddy to tell GoDaddy ActiveCampaign is allowed to send emails from my domain, from SeanFerris.com. It is verified, it's vetted. I want to send emails with ActiveCampaign. But also, you might be sending emails from Google Workspace or G Suite. Like when I do customer support in my Gmail inbox, I'm sending it from G Suite. I also send you guys receipt emails from Stripe whenever you get billed for CMB, right? So I have to approve Stripe to be able to send emails from my domain. If I was doing customer support with a tool like Zendesk, I would also have to approve Zendesk to be sending from support at SeanFerris.com. So, like I said, the SPF is the door girl at the club. She is going to check your domain's guest list. Okay, your domain has a guest list of all the approved senders to confirm that the ESP sending the email is on your approved list of senders. So all this really means is, let's say there was an imposter fake email and they happen to use ActiveCampaign. Well, I also use ActiveCampaign, and that's all it's checking for. It's just saying this email came from ActiveCampaign. Sean uses ActiveCampaign. Therefore, let this email through. You can see why it's not very secure, because anyone who's trying to scam and pretend to be me, if they just happen to also use ActiveCampaign, which I also use, then they would pass. And that's really no good. However, if someone was sending fake emails pretending to be me, but they were using MailChimp, and I don't use MailChimp, then that's not exactly going to fly, right? SPF's going to go, Sean doesn't even have MailChimp. There's no MailChimp connected to seanferris.com. Must be a spam, must be a scam. Don't let it through, okay? So it's a basic check. It's not very secure, but that's what the SPF does, okay? Next, we want to talk about DKIM. Stands for Domain Keys Identified Mail. Not important. You don't need to know that. Now, what the DKIM check does, all legitimate emails that come from you that you actually send are actually signed with a unique signature that lets the receiver know that it is really you and that the email hasn't been like tampered with or intercepted after it was sent. So it makes sure that it left your inbox and it landed in the person's inbox exactly as it was sent. It didn't change, it wasn't intercepted or replaced or whatever. Between here and here, when it was sent and when it was received, it just went straight there in a beeline. It's like your drunk friend at a club. She's totally wasted and you're like, you need to take an Uber and go straight home and go to bed, okay? You want to make sure that she goes from point A directly to point B, from the club directly home. She doesn't stop by McDonald's or the liquor store or fucking some random park on the way home. You want to make sure she goes straight there, okay? It's kind of like DKIM. So this is done with cryptography, right? Not important, just fun facts in case you wanted to know, in case you were curious. So you send all of your emails with a private key, and the receiving server then takes the private key that's in your email and it matches it up with your public key, which is on your public sort of database. So my domain, seanferris.com, has like a public database with all the public keys. And if my private key from the email that I've sent matches up with the public key, then the public key will be able to decrypt it and then display the contents of the email. And it will validate that it is really me. If someone sent from another domain, right, or whatever else, which didn't have my private key, because only I have my private key, and they were pretending to be me, well, they don't have my private key. So their email wouldn't match up with the public record, and DKIM would say, hey man, you're not Sean. This isn't the private key I was expecting. Wouldn't be able to decrypt it and open the email. Therefore, you would fail DKIM, okay? So you can tell that's much more secure of an actual record check test. Now, easiest way to explain this, DKIM is the bouncer. Okay, you passed the door girl's SPF check, the guest list, tick, but now the bouncer needs to make sure that number one, you match your ID. Okay, you are who you say you are. And that number two, it's actually a real ID and not a fake ID. Okay, that's DKIM explained. Making sense? Hopefully. Last but not least is your DMARC. Now, DMARC is like not actually strictly necessary. The only two that you need to have set up and that you need to have working and passing and validating are your SPF and your DKIM. Otherwise, your emails will be going to spam, okay? The function of DMARC isn't really to protect you. It's to protect your subscribers more than anything and protect innocent civilians basically from scammers. Let me explain. So what DMARC does is it tells mail servers what to do if either of these records fail. So if DKIM fails or if SPF fails, this is kind of like your policy on what happens. And there are three main options. So remember how I said before, your marshmallow, it's your DJ guest list. You get to decide. If someone doesn't pass DKIM or SPF, okay, it's the random person at the front of the door who's pretending they know you. Pretending they know you, meaning like they're impersonating you, they're pretending to be you, they're dropping your name to try and get in, okay? Now, it's actually up to you to decide what you do with them. You can reject them or you can let them in. Most of the time, you're going to want to reject them. Why would you want people emailing random people pretending to be you? You don't want that. That's why the girl at the end turned out to be an assassin who killed the guy, okay? That's why I ended the story with that. So let me explain. There's three options that you can choose for your DMARC. You can set it to reject, which is my recommended one that everyone should set up, which means that the email is bounced and never delivered. So what this means is anyone who is sending emails pretending to be me, flogging their shitcoin or whatever the latest scam is, and if they fail either one of these two tests, SPF or DKIM, what's my policy? Well, my policy is that don't deliver the email into the person's inbox. Of course, I don't want random people emailing my subscribers and scamming them, pretending it's me. So my policy is set to reject. So the email bounces, it's never even delivered. It doesn't even make it into the spam folder. It just disappears into the ether, okay? And it's bounced. That way, the innocent civilian does not have the chance to even see the impersonator email, okay? It doesn't even appear anywhere in the inbox. That is what I recommend everyone set it to, okay? The alternative is that you set it to none. And what this means is that you actually let the email go through as normal. Now, that was the example of the attractive woman at the club, right? I don't know her, but she's cute and I'm drunk, so I'm going to let her in anyway. Okay. That just means, hey, you know what? Fuck it. If anyone wants to pretend to be Sean Ferris, they can be Sean Ferris and they can email whoever they want pretending to be me. Of course, I don't want that. That's going to wreak havoc on innocent people and ruin my reputation. So we don't want that. And that's why the woman ended up actually being a Russian spy who killed the guy at the end. Okay. The third option for this is quarantine. So remember, this was the case where we let the manager decide. We said, hey, I don't want to take responsibility. Whatever the door policy, whatever the club policy is on that, whatever the manager wants to decide, the manager can decide. Okay. So this is basically like leaving it up to Gmail, leaving it up to Yahoo or Outlook on whatever their policy is. So in most cases, what it will do is it'll put them in spam. This was the example of when we let the psycho random person in the club, and you can say you can enter the club, but only stay in this dark fenced off area away from everyone else, aka the spam folder, right? Hopefully you can understand my analogies. Too good. So the bottom line here to bring this home is that you get to set your DMARC policy. You get to decide what you'd like to do. It's up to you, right? Which is pretty cool. With great power though comes great responsibility. So do you want to be able to allow random scammers to pretend to be you and to scam people under your name? Probably not. So in most cases, in all cases actually, you want to set DMARC to reject, this top one here, or quarantine. So at the very least, those emails should go to spam, but really we don't want people to even get the opportunity to open them. So set it to reject. So you might be thinking, why does this option even exist? What is even the point? Why would anyone even let it? The answer is really negligence. So the only legit reason you'd have to leave it on none or like accept all is really for testing purposes, just to test that DMARC is set up and actually working correctly. Or maybe if you were having like SPF and DKIM problems and even your own emails were getting rejected from your actual subscribers, they were all going to spam or they were getting bounced or something, then maybe you could change the DMARC, but really like you're better off just fix your own SPF, fix your own DKIM, and then you'll be fine. But the reason most people set it to none is because sometimes that's just the default and people don't even know what DMARC is. They don't know how to change it. They don't know that it exists. And so they don't do anything and they don't change it. And the default is just none. So they just leave it as is. And actually, most people actually have this set to none, more than half. So the majority, I think it's about 60% of people leave it on none, just out of sheer negligence because they don't know what this is or why they should care. But now you know, and now this is something that you can help your clients with. You can set it up for them and you can stop scammers being able to impersonate your clients and you and your brand and harm innocent civilians. Okay. So without enforcing, if you don't enforce either reject or quarantine, if you don't set this up yourself, then you really leave your subscribers vulnerable to phishing, spammers, and scammers and damaging your brand reputation as well. So we really don't want that. So in terms of how do you actually set these up, all three of these actually need to be set up manually. They're not just there by default. So it's actually up to you when you first set up your email account. It's part of like the onboarding setup process. So if you sign up for a new ESP, they'll walk you through how to do this step by step. So don't worry about it too much, but it's good to know how to do it anyway. So these need to be set up manually by copy pasting text records from your ESP. So I'd have to go into ActiveCampaign, into the settings. I'd have to find the particular line of code or the text into your DNS records. So I'd copy it from ActiveCampaign and then I would go into GoDaddy or Google Domains or Squarespace or wherever my domain is hosted, wherever I bought my domain seanferris.com from, there's something called DNS records. I actually host my domain in HostGator. So my DNS records are actually in HostGator instead. It doesn't really matter. Whatever you bought your domain from, wherever your domain's hosted, find your cPanel, go to the DNS records, and you're going to copy paste the text records from ActiveCampaign into the domain manager to really confirm that ActiveCampaign is allowed to send emails. That's the SPF, and that it's you sending the emails. And that's the DKIM, all right? And you can also set your DMARC policy there as well. Now, rather than walk you through step by step how to do that, there's a 8-minute video here on YouTube with some New Zealander guy who seems smart. He knows what he's talking about. I watched the video and I can confirm that is how you set it up. So I'll let him explain it for you rather than me explaining it. Should you ever need to do this, should you ever need to set it up, there's a video there which explains how to do that. The only difference is he is using Google Workspace / G Suite. So all you would need to do is instead of trying to connect Google Workspace like G Suite with his domain, you are probably going to be trying to connect your ESP like ActiveCampaign with your domain. So instead of everything that is doing, rather than copying it from Google into your DNS records, you're going to copy it from ActiveCampaign or from whatever your ESP is into your DNS records. That's the only difference. Last thing, you can check your SPF, DKIM, and DMARC records with free tools like Google Admin Toolbox, MX Toolbox, DMARCane, or Mail Genius, which actually recently was acquired by Troy Erickson, funnily enough. So yeah, you can use any of those free tools to check if your SPF, DKIM, and DMARC records are set up correctly. Alternatively, you can also just go straight into the email itself. You go show original email right there, and then it will come up. You can see, I'm not sure why the other two aren't displaying, but you can see that DKIM says pass. Okay, usually it'll come up with all three of them. It'll say SPF, etc., etc. It'll say DKIM passed, SPF passed, and DMARC passed. Okay, that's how you can check as well. Cool. Hopefully that didn't go straight over your head. I really tried my hardest to take something that is extremely complicated and honestly boring as fuck and explain it in a way that is hopefully somewhat entertaining, enjoyable, and easy to digest and understand with the whole club analogy there. So that right there is deliverability demystified. You now know the 4 components that make up email deliverability, and you know how each one of them affects your email deliverability, the success of your emails in terms of the contents of the emails, the domain reputation, IP reputation, your authentication records. Now we are going to talk about how to get out of the promotions tab. Should any of these go wrong, what do you do? How do you fix it? How do you get out of spam? How do you get out of promo? That's what we're going to talk about in the next training. So I'll see you there in just a second.